Are profits the most important thing for a business? This is a really fundamental question. I think as capitalism evolves, we're going to see a much greater focus on stakeholders, customers, employees, communities, versus shareholders. Now, I want to make a very important point here. That does not mean that shareholders are going to get the short end of the stick. If companies refocus on adding value to employees and customers, for example, then shareholders are rewarded. It has to do with whether you're focusing on outputs or outcomes. The problem we've seen in the past is as organizations just focus on shareholders and lose their attention on customers and employees, they really take their eye off the ball about how they add value. We have to find win-wins. And that's a really important and useful way that capitalism is going to evolve to better serve society. The number one thing that Gen Ys or millennials tell me that they want from their organization is a clear, defined, practiced purpose. I think that last point is an important one. For decades, the assumption of the purpose of business is to maximize value to shareholders. Today, increasingly, we're hearing a hue and cry that the primary purpose of business is to serve stakeholders, meaning customers, communities, employees, and as a result of that focus, then shareholders are also rewarded. It's an inversion of where you apply your focus, but is actually represents a fundamental different way in which commerce will happen when Gen Y assumes the C-suite. Gen Ys or millennials don't want a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 sort of dying, but instead want work and life to be integrated in a manner which is beneficial and healthy, both for the employee and for the employer. The focus on stakeholders is a very Gen Y or millennial perspective. But with every passing year, more and more Gen Ys and millennials are running mutual funds, pension funds, investment schemes, and are analysts in the financial community. Therefore, those investors that hold that paradigm are rewarding companies that are stakeholder focused instead of shareholder focused. The interesting thing right now is we're experiencing a tension because there's a passing of the baton from one generation's paradigm to another generation's paradigm. The more and more you see Gen Ys being able to make those decisions about what companies I'm going to invest millions of dollars in, or what companies I'm going to give a buy or a sell rating to. More and more as they are focused on stakeholders instead of shareholders, companies will have no choice but to be focused in the right area. What are the new paradigms of business as usual for companies today? Well, I would say there are two broad themes that we find are increasingly true. The first is a focus on purpose over profit. The funny thing is, if you focus on purpose, you would actually enhance your profits. The second point that we see in organizations is that they're much more focused on sustainability. And of course, we see this has been a trend that's been growing and growing, at least over the last decade. And finally, the investment community is waking up to that and rewarding those organizations that have that focus. I think what we find in an era where technology and business model evolution is occurring at an ever faster rate, it's those organizations that are led by irregular people adding irregular value that are achieving irregular results. So what I urge my clients and audiences to think about is don't just identify and practice best practice. Find your own way. Lead the pack. Don't be a follower.